A concert titled "And They Lynched Him on a Tree" will be held at the Mitchell Auditorium at the College of St. Scholastica on March 8th. The concert is part of events organized by the Clayton McGhie 2020 Planning Committee to recognize the 100-year anniversary of the Duluth lynching. The concert will feature the world premiere of Rudy Peralt's We Three Kings, commissioned by the committee. Also featured will be works by African-American composer William Grant Still. Well, here to tell us more is Julia Cheng, the lead organizer of the concert and member of the 2020 Planning Committee. And Jordan Moses has been the driving force behind all of the events. He is the CJM 2020 event planner. And welcome, and thanks to both of you for being here.
Thanks for having us.
We'll get to the concert in just a moment, but Julia, for those who may not be familiar with this sad event in Duluth's history, could you maybe just tell us the story of what happened that will be remembered this year?
Well, in June of 1920, the John Robinson Circus came to Duluth, and during their stay here, two young people ended up accusing circus workers of attack and rape. So after the circus had packed up and they were on a train on their way out of town, the train was actually stopped, and police officers took all of the black circus workers off of the train. The young people did, follow directions and identified 6 young men who were then taken to the city jail on East Superior Street. There were other people in West Duluth who fomented a lynch mob. One person in particular had a truck and drove up and down Superior Street calling for a mob to form. So on the evening of June 15th, a mob of probably 10,000 people formed outside the jail in downtown Duluth. They used bricks, axes, hatchets, and they broke through the walls of the jail. They held a kangaroo court trial, and they dragged 3 of the young men up 2nd Avenue East to the intersection with First Street, and they hanged them from a light pole. This was a heinous event, and even though it made the national news, for many years the knowledge about this was suppressed in the Duluth community at large, although the African American community was very, very aware of that. So in about the 1990s, members of the Duluth community formed a committee to bring recognition, to bring this truth to light. And that committee helped build the monument that now stands at that intersection. And the Clayton Jackson McGhie Memorial was dedicated in 2003, which was only 17 years ago. So that was, pretty much within a reasonable time frame. 17 years is not that long. And I'm in the 2nd generation of board members. The building committee formed the nonprofit 501c3, and as soon as the memorial was dedicated in 2003, we said, 17 years from now, 2020 is the centennial, and we need to prepare. We need to recognize that very, very significant milestone, and here we are.
Mm-hmm. Now, Jordan, you've kind of been spearheading this whole effort, but are the repercussions, it's 100 years ago, seems like a long time ago, but it's so fresh in our memories now, especially when we're bringing it back on the 100th anniversary. Have we really dealt with the repercussions here in Duluth?
Well, I don't think so. I think one of the pieces that folks need to understand about these lynchings, the lynchings in Duluth, is they weren't some random act of violence, right? They are a tactic that was used all over the country to incite fear and to control populations. And that tactic is born out of a place of hatred, white supremacy, and this culture of violence. And so although things have shifted and changed over time, we still are dealing with racism, white supremacy, violence, dehumanization. There are folks on this planet who were alive when these lynchings occurred. There are folks in our community that know folks that were there and have heard stories from folks who were there or who were in our city at the time. And so we have to continue as a community to have these conversations and explore the history and how that history ripples through time and how it affects us 100 years later.
Let's talk about the concert that's coming up. That's how you're going to kick off the 100 days leading up to the actual anniversary. It's being billed as a concert of healing and atonement. What makes the concert so unique?
That's a great question for Julia.
All right,
Yeah.
I'll pass it to Julia.
Okay. Well, the genesis of this concert was my attending an Arrowhead Chorale performance of the St. Matthew Passion back in 2015. It was, offered during the Lenten season, and what really struck me immediately were the parallels between this mob lynching in Palestine 2,000 years ago, according to tradition, and what happened here. And I thought, wouldn't it be wonderful if we staged the St. Matthew Passion in recognition of the 100th anniversary? And that turned out to be probably too much to do because it's a very long piece of music. But we stayed with the idea and chose different pieces of music. So the concert is a concert of healing and atonement. And I like to say that people don't really remember very well what they hear, but they always remember how they feel. And my goal in this project was to create an orchestra and a chorus drawn from across the community. And these people would offer music in ways that would recognize what happened to these three young men. And so we chose a symphony by the African-American composer William Grant Still. We feel that we needed to recognize artists whose careers have been impacted by racism and white supremacy, and Grant Still was one of them. We are performing the Symphony No. 2. We're also performing Grant Still's oratorio, And They Lynched Him on a Tree. It was his setting of a poem by Catherine Chapin. It's a story of a man who was lynched, and of course we don't see this on stage. But we've been working on this piece for several weeks now. The chorus has. The orchestra starts rehearsals next week, and last week we did the first complete run through of the chorus, and even though it was raw and it needs more rehearsal, I just felt chills from hearing this, and I think that the people who are singing, the people who are playing, they're going to remember how they felt learning these pieces. They're going to remember how they felt performing. They will feel something in their heart, the terror and the grief that these young men went through, and this will, as one of our goals, is that people go through this experience transformed with resolve to do better, to undo racism, to make change in our community. Because we are all still going to be here. We will take what we learned and felt and experienced in this concert and carry it on in our lives.
Unfortunately, we're just about out of time here, but Jordan, I just wanted to mention too that people need to go online to register for a ticket. Can you tell people how to do that? We'll have a graphic up at the end
For
as well.
sure, yeah. It's cjm2020.org. There is a button right under the event title and photograph, and you can register. It's free to register, but it likely will be sold out, so we highly recommend registering.
And it's March 8th, coming up on March 8th. Thank you for being here.
Yes, thank you.